you are a world-class wheelchair racer or a hand cyclist, you can make a living doing that. And 25 years ago, you really couldn't.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 TAC. Get out there and have some fun. Hello and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Kurt Linville. Today I have special guest Matt Feeney with us from Adaptive Adventures. Matt is the Director of Advancement and co-founder for Adaptive Adventures, and he is here today to talk to us about the Adaptive Adventures program, about a lot of the adventure sports that he does, as well as opportunities that are out there for a whole lot of other people to do some amazing adventure sports. Matt, we're really excited to share what you have going on with Adaptive Adventures, so welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Kurt, and thanks for having me.
So, Matt, you just told me that you moved to Colorado when you were 8 and just fell in love with all the sports here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and who you are and how you came to be an adventure sports enthusiast.
Well, I guess, it's fairly typical to people that grow up in Colorado. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in outdoor sports. And I started with the traditional team sports. As a kid, I played football, basketball, baseball. I was on the swim team. I was always out doing something I was always very active. Staying active and being involved in sports was always very important to me growing up. And I think it's kind of stayed with me throughout the years. And especially something like skiing. I learned to ski at a young age, and it was something I connected with my friends with. It was a very social activity. And once you start progressing and getting to be a better skier, it just becomes more fun, and you can do a little bit more with it. And of course, I've always just enjoyed being outdoors. And so I guess that's kind of where it all stems from. And then eventually when I went to college in Durango, one of the reasons, my parents thought it was the only reason, but one of the reasons I chose Fort Lewis College in Durango, which is in the southwest corner of Colorado, was because there was a ski area about 20 miles away from the campus. And so, again, I continued skiing all the way through college and just embraced it, loved it, loved to ski with my friends. And again, it's a very social activity that I love to participate in.
Yeah, my wife went to Fort Lewis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a really great school and a fantastic location. Really, really neat place. So I get it, man. Definitely. So Adaptive Adventures is an organization. I'll let you give us the details, but it's an organization that offers adventure sports of all sorts of different kinds to people with various disabilities. And it was founded in 1999. You have over 2,000 participants and over 200 year-round programs. So busy, busy, busy. You're located in Colorado and in Illinois. How did you get involved with Adaptive Adventures?
Wow. Well, that's it's kind of a long story, but I'll do my best here. I suffered a traumatic injury in 1988. I was vacationing at Lake Powell in Utah. And I was a competitive diver, another sport that I did in high school. I was a springboard diver, and went to Lake Powell with some friends when I was in my 20s, and we were goofing around and diving off some cliffs, and I ended up breaking my back. Oh. And when I broke my back, the vertebrae went into the spinal cord, and that's all it took was just landing in the water wrong. I didn't hit anything but water. It was about 200 feet deep, because I always checked it. I always thought I was calculated and fairly smart about it, but it was pretty high up, and just the way I entered the water at a strange angle, and it was, as I said, it was kind of a freak accident, but it did spinal cord damage, so I instantly became a paraplegic. So kind of had to, as you can imagine, it's a fairly daunting situation. Didn't know what I was going to do. From there on, I went to Craig Hospital down in Englewood, a very well-renowned facility for rehabilitation, and met some pretty inspiring people there, and talked to, the whole staff was very just kind and actually were very knowledgeable about what you can do, that your life's not over, that you can lead a productive life, even though you're going to most likely be spending the rest of your life in a wheelchair. So once I got past that, it took a little bit to get my head around it all. But I thought, okay, well, if this is what it's going to be like, I figured I'd try to embrace it. And the first thing I thought of was sports. My connection with sports as a kid kind of came through, and I thought, you know what, let's see what sports are out there for someone in a wheelchair. And some of them, I got to be honest, some of them didn't look that great, I'm 6'2", and I used to play a lot of basketball. And for some reason, wheelchair basketball didn't really appeal to me that much. I tried it a few times. It was okay. It's very good cardio work, and it's good for your fitness. But for some reason, I gravitated towards skiing. And so I went up to Winter Park and took my first ski lesson, and that was fairly daunting as well, because I had to relearn how to ski from a seated position on what's called a monoski. And a monoski is basically a seat mounted on a frame with a shock absorber, and underneath you have one single ski that you're balanced on. Now, you do have two outriggers to help you with your balance, and outriggers are like crutches with little ski tips on the end of them. And so, just to give your listeners just kind of a visual there, it's kind of hard to describe, but that's what a monoski is. And I'll tell you, it was not easy. And I stuck with it. I kept going and learning how to ski. And one day it just kind of clicked, and I was making turns. And it just opened up a whole new world for me, and basically changed my life. I eventually quit a perfectly good job in Denver and moved up to Winter Park with no job, no prospects. I didn't know anybody. I just knew that I had a calling and that I should go ski.
Right on.
And so I became basically a ski bum for a couple of years and trained up there and learned how to race a little bit and competed, which only lasted a couple of years. I started to then get interested in teaching others, and I became a ski instructor. So that started the next chapter in my life, and I worked for the National Sports Center for the Disabled in Winter Park, which at the time was the largest adaptive ski program in the world. And I did that for about 10 years. But after a while, I started discovering other sports. I started hand cycling and doing some mountain biking and water skiing. And I found out eventually that those sports were not always offered specifically by that organization. And so I had the idea that, there's got to be other opportunities out there. So I had the idea to start Adaptive Adventures in 1998, and we started it in 1999. And our mission is to provide progressive outdoor sports opportunities to improve the quality of life for children, men, and veterans with physical disabilities.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And it's just snowballed from there. Now we're 17 years later, we're teaching thousands of people how to get out and enjoy life, and we're affecting the lives of a lot of people, and that's very rewarding. But that's kind of how it started. I just had an interest in adaptive sports early on, and it just kind of snowballed, and I wanted to take these sports that I enjoy and try to reach other people through those sports.
Wow. What a great story, man. To overcome the hardships that you have and then to turn it around and make this organization out of it that helps so many people. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you.
So, Matt, why the word adaptive? What does that mean to you as far as your company here?
I believe that, there are some words that have evolved. The word disabled, I think, 30, 40 years ago, they were probably, the word handicap was used a lot, and it still is. When you talk about a parking space, that's not an adaptive parking space. It's a handicap parking space. I think that a lot of people were offensive because of the origin of that word, handicapped. I guess it literally translates to the cap in the hand asking, for handouts. Mm. And at least that's a few people have told me that's the origin of handicap, and I think that kind of gives a negative connotation to someone that has a disability, someone that has some physical challenge or any other kind of challenge. It doesn't offend me, the word handicap, but I think that has evolved into, handicap sports evolved into disabled sports which has evolved into adaptive sports. It's basically we, as people with disabilities, want to participate in the same types of activities that everybody does, every day in this country or around the world. We just do it a little bit differently. And that's where the word adaptive came from, because we're adapting. Instead of, for instance, the way I ski or the way I ride a bike. I ride a hand cycle. The only difference between my bike and your bike is yours has 2 wheels, mine has 3, and I pedal it with my arms instead of my legs. So I guess the word adaptive is kind of fitting in a lot of those situations. We want to be accepted and we want to be included. We just do things a little bit differently, and we have to adapt to make that happen.
You know what I think is so cool about that is that I think it very well describes what you guys are doing there. You're sending out the message. It doesn't matter really what your handicap is. There's a way to adapt and do all these cool sports.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. And I think what's so neat about it too, I mean, I don't want to go off on some crazy tangent here, but just the engineering idea behind it. Okay, so we have new parameters to work with. We designed a bicycle to do this. Now, how do we design it to do this way? And that's really cool. I think that's a fantastic thing.
And it is. It's, and it's come so far. My accident happened in 1988, and I try to explain to people when they ask me, well, what have you seen in your 27 years or 28 years since you've had your accident? You've spent more than half your life in a wheelchair. What have you seen? What kind of technological advancements have you seen in the world of sports? And one of the analogies I give is the fact that in 1988, when I got hurt, the fastest guy in a wheelchair in this country in the Boston Marathon was about equal to the fastest runner. They were both doing it in about 2 hours and 7 minutes, something like that. Those were like world best times in the marathon. So the wheelchairs were equal to the runners. Now, the wheelchair division, they beat the runners by 45 minutes. I mean,
great.
Think about that.
And I don't want to arm wrestle any of those guys.
Oh, trust me, they are. And it's not that the equipment, that's part of it. The equipment, the technology has gotten better, but mostly it's the athletes. They've gotten, now you can make a living. If you are a world-class wheelchair racer or a hand cyclist, you can make a living doing that. And 25 years ago, you really couldn't. I mean, it was really hard to make a living as a disabled athlete. And now people are making a very good living being a disabled athlete. And it's amazing to see. And it's the same thing with a lot of adaptive, I'll use the word again, adaptive sports equipment. That has enabled us, it has leveled the playing field over the years so that what we can do is quite amazing. It's eye-opening. People used to go, I'd meet people when I was, up in Winter Park, and they would say, "Oh, that's nice, you ski." And they picture me, maybe in my wheelchair with little skis on or something, and going down a bunny hill or something. And I would say, yeah, come on up and ski with me sometime. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Because I can ski everything on the mountain, double black diamonds, moguls, steep chutes, just about anything is not off limits. So, and I just think it's come a long way in a relatively short time with the technology and the ability of the athletes.
Oh man, I love it. That's very, very cool. By now, you certainly know who Bent Gate is. That's for a great reason. Bent Gate Mountaineering has been sponsoring the Adventure Sports Podcast almost from the beginning, and we really appreciate that. They've made it possible for all the great shows to continue coming your way. We want to say thanks by reminding you to go to them for your backcountry gear. If you live in Colorado, then just stop by their store in Golden. If not, go to bentgate.com. They have what you need, from the latest ultralight gear to the tried and true classics for climbing, hiking, and camping, like Arc'teryx, Hilleberg, Nemo, Western Mountaineering, and many more. Need advice? They have you covered there too. Their staff are passionate adventurers who can offer help from their own experiences. Bentgate also hosts lots of events and speakers. Check out their website to see the schedule and to see all of their products. Help take care of the Adventure Sports Podcast by getting your gear from Bentgate Mountaineering. So your organization here, Adaptive Adventures, takes advantage of those things to offer a plethora of different types of sports to people. I mean, I'm just glancing at your website here, and I'm sure I'm going to miss a bunch, but you have skiing and snowboarding, cycling, dragon boat racing, kayaking, rock climbing, sailing, scuba, water skiing, wakeboarding, whitewater rafting. How cool is that?
Well, it's actually, it's a little bit mind-blowing. If you look back in 1999, when we started the organization, we had offered skiing, and then in the summer, obviously in the winter, and in the summer, we offered cycling and water skiing. Those were our two primary sports, and mostly because those are the sports that I was interested in, and my co-founder, Joel Berman, he was interested in as well. And then at some point we added kayaking, and then the floodgates just opened. We were like, hey, what about this? And a few years ago, a gentleman approached us and said, hey, I really want to start a sailing program with you guys, and how do we do that? And we just did it. He was able to, get a bunch of these adaptive sailboats, and all on a volunteer basis. And there's a group of them that just came to us and said, we want to take people out with disabilities. We want to take them out sailing. So that all of a sudden we had a sailing program, and that's grown too. Just in the last 3 years, it's really become very popular. And things like even scuba diving. We don't have a real formal scuba diving program, but we try to go, once a year to somewhere nice and warm and take people out to scuba diving, because that's another sport, if you call it a sport. I think some people might not call it a sport, but diving is something that, again, water's a great equalizer. When I get in the water, I'm just like you or anyone else, except, I use my arms a little bit more.
I disagree, because when you get in the water with the arms you have, you're going to leave me behind. There's no way I could keep up with those arms.
But we go to places like Cozumel, Mexico, where it's drift diving, and you get in the water, and the current takes you along. So all you're really doing is just kind of, relaxing, checking out the scenery, and it's very little effort, actually. So, but I just brought that up because it's another one of those sports where it's very adaptable. Anyone with a disability can go and dive and swim with the fish. It's kind of cool.
I love it. Are you open to new sports in the program?
Yes and no. I mean, we're always contemplating that, but we have grown so fast in a relatively short amount of time that we're always a little bit leery about taking something on. So we do discuss it, and if the opportunity is there, if we feel like there's a need in the community for a different sport. I will say that there are some sports that we do not offer because someone else is probably doing it. For instance, wheelchair basketball or sled hockey. Sled hockey. And those are mostly team sports. What's become really popular lately is lacrosse. Wheelchair lacrosse has really taken off as well. And I don't feel, and I don't think our board feels that, there's a real need in the community for that, because there's plenty of opportunity for people to do that. So that's really what it's based on. First of all, is there a need for us to come in and start a program? And second of all, do we have the resources to do it? So
sure.
Those are really the two things that we have to contemplate before. But we do throw those things around from time to time. Hey, look at this new sport. Obviously, we're probably not going to do surfing because we're a little bit landlocked. But beyond that, we would certainly consider any other sport if it meets those criteria.
Cool. So what about dragon boat racing? I picked that one out of the blue because I don't know anything about it. You offer dragon boat racing in Denver, Chicago, and Milwaukee, it says here. Perhaps other places too. Again,
that's something that was our paddle sports director. He's a avid kayaker, and another sport that's become quite popular is paddleboarding. Stand-up paddleboarding. And so Chris runs our paddle sports program. And he brought that to us a couple of years ago and said, "Hey, there's this more of a team sport called dragon boat racing. It has deep roots in the Chinese in Chinese history. It dates back thousands of years, and it's basically you get 20 people in a big boat, and typically the guy at the front of the boat is beating on a drum to keep the beat so that the people that are rowing can get in sync. And there's competitions, and I had no idea. It's huge. It's got a big following, and you know who really gets a lot out of it and who are really enthusiastic about it are men and women that have been injured in the military. They enjoy the camaraderie, the teamwork, the spirit of competition, and they really embrace it. And it's quite popular with our members of the military. So we've only been doing that. I think this is our third year doing Dragon Boat, but it has taken off, and it's great. It's got all the it's got physical. It's a physical sport. It's fairly physically demanding. You get a good workout out there paddling, and again, like I said, it's got the team component and the camaraderie, and many people are enjoying it. So it's a great that we can offer that opportunity.
So it's kind of like crew with a paddle instead of oars.
Sure. Yep, and a bigger crew, a lot bigger crew, and a bigger boat.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun, I'll tell you that. I'm looking at the pictures on the website. By the way, for our listeners, you can see pictures and see about all of these programs at adaptiveadventures.org. And you guys have a great website, tons of fun pictures, and I'm sitting here enjoying them.
Oh, that's great.
What a great thing. Well, hey, tell us about what got you hooked on the skiing. I would like a story that just takes us there where we can say, wow, that was a cool experience.
Well, the best way to describe it is, and if you haven't, since you haven't been, sitting in a wheelchair, skiing is a very liberating sport for someone with a disability like myself. When I get in my monoski, anytime I can get out of my wheelchair is a good thing. But skiing, as I said, is a very liberating sport. And what I mean by that, when I'm in my wheelchair during the course of a day, a typical day, in my life, there are stairs, there are narrow doorways, there are curbs, there are so many obstacles that I face on a daily basis. And when I get in my monoski, there's no limitations. I can go virtually anywhere on the mountain that I choose to go. And that became apparent when I was first learning how to ski. I was struggling, and it was very humbling. And I finally got to the point where I was starting to make some turns, wasn't falling that much, but then I learned how to get up myself after a fall. I didn't need any help. Then the next step, I learned how to get on and off the chairlift by myself in a monoski. That to me was huge, because all of a sudden I got my independence back.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't have to have someone helping me, and I could basically once I learned how to do that, I could basically go out, jump in my monoski, and I could ski alone if I wanted to, or with friends, and ski anywhere on the mountain I choose. And to me, that's why I love skiing. It's just very liberating, and there's very few limitations on what you can do when you're in a monoski. And so that to me, that was kind of my aha moment, where I just went, you know what? I think I'm going to be okay. I think I can deal with this. So.
Yeah, that's neat. I can imagine the sense of freedom that comes with that. I mean, I get that sense of freedom on skis just because it's so fun to slide instead of walk, right?
Oh, absolutely.
To be able to glide over the snow, feel the wind in your face, take a few jumps, go through the bumps. It's a delight. And so that had to be just amazing for you.
That's why I think skiing is such a great sport for people with disabilities, because, as you mentioned, that gliding movement, that's, in theory, it's very graceful and it's very gliding. And, I've met people in my life that, it might take them 5 minutes to walk across a room, but you put them on a pair of skis and they're just, they're just gone. It's amazing to see.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic, man. Well, what are your dreams for the organization now? I mean, you've got a lot of things going on. What does the future hold?
Well, that's a really good question. I think right now we're just going to stay the course and try to sustain all the programs that we've started and the growth that we've managed to have over the last 3-4 years. We want to continue on the path, changing people's lives, getting people, outdoors more healthy and more active, leading an active lifestyle. And as I was saying earlier, I don't know that we'll be adding any other sports, but the current roster is pretty full. And I think within those core sports that you mentioned, I think we will continue to improve the quality of our programs and reach out and get more and more more and more participants, whether they're a young age or not. That's one of the things I like to do. I like to work with the young kids, and see how they progress over the years, and it really can be life changing. Getting someone involved in outdoor sports, it really overflows into other facets of their lives, and in a positive way. So it's a great impact, and I hope that we can impact more of these people in the years to come.
Matt, I end every podcast with get out there and have some fun. And that's the message of the Adventure Sports Podcast, is these adventure sports do branch into the rest of your lives, the rest of your life. And they add a richness and a purpose sometimes for people, and they broaden people's horizons. They build community. They connect people with nature and with health. There's so many great advantages. And the beautiful thing about what you're doing here is you're saying it doesn't matter if you have a disability, you can do the same thing. Come on, we'll show you how.
Absolutely. No, that was well said.
I love it, man. I really do. So how can people get involved with the program? So if someone has a disability and they want to do some of these things, how do they get in touch with you and get involved?
Well, the best way is probably through our website. We have, as you probably know from looking at the website, we have a calendar, and the calendar is chock full of events, different programs that we run. So I guess it would just depend on what your interest is. If your interest is you want to learn to kayak, or suppose you were an avid kayaker or you had tried it a few times and then you had some kind of accident and ended up with a disability, and you wanted to try it again or learn how to do it again, or someone that was even born with a disability that wants to learn to kayak. You just go on the website, look at the calendar, and find what locations and dates we're doing kayak programs. You can also send us an email through the website if you have any questions about any of the programs that we run, or you can certainly give us a call as well at our office and let us know your interests and what you want to do. And, if it's something that we offer, we'll make it happen.
Okay, well, I'm going to give out the number in here in just a minute, but I'm going to give people a minute to grab a pen and piece of paper, and we'll also put it on our website so that they can go there after the show if they want to and see how to get in touch with you. But our website is, of course, the adventuresportspodcast.com, and Matt's website is adaptiveadventures.org. The phone numbers for Colorado, it's 303-679-2770. That's 303-679-2770. And if you're in Illinois, 847-251-8445. That's 847-251-8445. And if you're in surrounding areas, call and find out where the events are and how you can get involved from a distance, too.
Absolutely. And we also are always looking for volunteers. So if someone's out there and wants to get involved, and you can do the same process. You can sign up through our website as a volunteer, or you can give us a call. Let us know what your interests are, and we'll get you plugged in.
Well, you beat me to my next question, but that's really cool. So if a person wanted to volunteer, what sorts of things would they be doing with you?
Well, again, it depends on their interest and their expertise, if any. We have all kinds of opportunities. We do a basic orientation, a volunteer orientation. We offer, several of those every month, where you just come into the office and kind of meet some of the staff, and we kind of give you an overview of the programs and how they're run and what's expected. And then you can kind of be more specific and pick a sport or pick an activity that you want to volunteer for. If that's cycling, then there's certain days where we do cycling training, volunteer training, and it's not rocket science. It's basically, we could train you to be a volunteer basically in one day or part of the day. Just how to fit someone in a hand cycle or a kayak, whatever the sport is, and how to work with these individuals. And again, you get better over time. The more you do it, it's like anything. The more you do it, the more comfortable you are at whether you're volunteering or instructing or a participant for that matter. But it just depends on the volunteer interest as well. But we'll plug you into whatever sport or activity that you're interested in, and you can volunteer that way.
And there are a lot of different activities. We already went over. I'm going to say them again in case people missed because I just went so fast. But I see here alpine skiing and snowboarding, cycling, dragon boat racing, kayaking, rock climbing, sailing, scuba, water ski and wakeboard, whitewater rafting. So there are 9 things right there that encompass an awful lot of adventure sports. And so it sounds like there's something for everybody.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your events. You have so many events, over 200 going on. So I know we can't list them all, but give us kind of a general idea.
Well, there's some programs that, meet weekly, and others are a little bit more sporadic. Again, it depends on the activity. One of my favorite events, and again, with the cost to the participant, we try to subsidize every program so that some programs we can offer for free, and some all our programs are very inexpensive or free. And we do that by, subsidizing through fundraising, grant writing, and putting on special events to raise money to offset these costs so that we can offer these activities at a very low price, or like I said, free. One of my favorite events that's coming up is because I like working with kids, is our Stars of Tomorrow camp, which is July 7th and 8th at Sloan's Lake, which is right kind of in the heart of Denver there, off of, Colfax and Sheridan kind of. But again, all the information's on the website. That's a 2-day event for any child under the age of 18 that wants to come out and learn how to water ski, kayak, cycle, and there's some other games and arts and crafts things that we do as well. And typically we have between 30 and 40 kids that come out for 2 days. We provide lunch, and it's just a great event. It's great to see the kids interact too, and they really just have a great time on the water and in and out of the water. And so anyway, that's called the Stars of Tomorrow camp. That's just one example.
Now, does that happen just once or over and over during the summer, or when is this happening?
That's a once-a-year event. We also do a winter Stars of Tomorrow camp, and that's a 3-day ski camp in Steamboat every March. So nice. we do two a year, but one's winter and one's summer. And there are certainly other kids' activities that we do, but that one just comes to mind. That's a real good one for kids that want to come out and try several sports, in one event, as opposed to, I'm going to go to Washington Park tomorrow and ride a hand cycle, which is great, but sometimes there might be multiple sports that you want to try, and that's a really good event for that.
Cool. So the kids camp, free, happens twice a year, winter, summer, really cool, but it's not just for kids. You work with people of all ages as well.
That's true. That event is for kids, but right. we work with adults, children, and veterans.
So tell us about the veteran work a little bit. Okay.
Well, it's interesting that we started Adaptive Adventures in 1999, and back then we didn't have we weren't working with a lot of disabled veterans, and there were some, but then of course 9/11 happened, and unfortunately, but I'm glad that we were in a position to facilitate these programs for men and women in the military that have been injured in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so that part of our program, we went from serving, before 9/11, I think maybe 5% of our participants were veterans, and now it's probably over half. And it's again, I think the word inspiring sometimes is overused, but it is very inspiring to be able to work with these men and women and get them back on track. They come back with various injuries, and we work with them again, no matter what their sport is or what they want to try. We get them back out and into the community and socializing with other veterans and civilians. And it's, again, can be life-changing.
Well, how much does it cost for people to participate in your programs?
Well, again, if someone is a veteran, a disabled veteran, we offer all of our activities for free. Cool. And for something like the Stars of Tomorrow camp for kids that I just mentioned, that is a free event as well. And we always try to keep that event free. Some of our events are free. Some have a nominal fee. It just depends. We do a Lake Powell trip. In fact, some of my staff was packing up to leave tomorrow for Lake Powell. We have a 70-foot wheelchair-accessible houseboat on Lake Powell. And we run 4 trips a year, 4 weeks. Tomorrow starts the first trip, a week-long trip. And that trip, I believe, is $700. So, but again, there's a few members of the military that are going that we scholarship. And again, whenever we can, we try to subsidize the cost through our fundraising efforts. But there are expenses associated with, especially doing a trip like that, a week-long trip out at Lake Powell on a houseboat. But again, if you looked into, renting a houseboat and doing a trip on your own, it is very, very expensive to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So we try to cut costs, and our ski camps cost a little bit of money. But again, it's just a fraction of what it would normally cost if you wanted to engage in that kind of a trip. So our adventure trips do cost. Our rafting trips cost a little bit. Some of our multi-day camps might cost a few $100s, but for the most part, it's a nominal fee to participate in our programs.
If you want to get into backpacking, but you're not sure where to start, go check out campcrate.net. Camp Crate can help you plan the backpacking trip of a lifetime and supply you with all the rental gear you need. Simply go online and choose your gear and your itinerary. Camp Crate will then ship your gear anywhere in the U.S. When your trip is finished, use the pre-printed return label to ship the gear back. It's that easy. Camp Crate. Rent, explore, return.
We have listeners that are around Colorado and Utah and what have you, but we have listeners around the planet as well. So tell people what is special about Lake Powell. This place is not your ordinary lake.
That is correct, Kurt. It is not your ordinary lake. It is so hard to describe. I always encourage people that when I talk to them about Lake Powell, they say, no, I've never heard of it. You've never heard of Lake Powell? Okay, you need to go Google it right now and just look at some pictures of that place, because words, it's hard to really do it justice with just words. But it is, the other way I describe it is if no one's ever seen Lake Powell, it's like, imagine, do you know what the Grand Canyon is? And they say, sure. I say, imagine putting a dam at one end of the Grand Canyon and just letting it fill up. That's what Lake Powell looks like. And so I guess that's the best way to describe it. But it is a beautiful lake, 140 miles long, fairly narrow because it's through the Grand Canyon there. And it is just spectacular. The scenery is amazing, and it's in the middle of nowhere. So one of the things I like about it is there's no cell service, or very little cell service. There's no internet. You can go out there and just get lost for a week and enjoy yourself. And whether you want to kayak or water ski or just fish, read a book, just relax. Campfires at night, and water sports during the day. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, Lake Powell is a special place, no doubt about that.
It really is.
Let's do the rich uncle question. I love this. So let's say that somebody says, all right, no expenses too much. What's the dream trip? What are you going to do?
Oh, boy, the dream trip. I guess for me it would be, I've always wanted to, because I'm a diver, a scuba diver as well, and I've always wanted to do a liveaboard. And if you don't know, if you're not a diver, a liveaboard is, instead of just going to the dock, getting on a boat and going out and doing a few dives and then coming back to your hotel, a liveaboard is actually spending a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, or longer aboard a boat out at sea. And just you don't touch land for quite a long period of time. And I guess I've always wanted to go to maybe the other side of the world, maybe somewhere like Fiji, and just someplace I've never been, and do a liveaboard and do some diving and socializing with people and just enjoying what the ocean has to offer for a period of time. That's one of the things I'd like to do.
That sounds really cool. And scuba diving, boating, rafting, water skiing, kayaking, rock climbing. I mean, it just goes on. And that That liveaboard scuba sounds really nice. That would be interesting. I don't know what it would be like to be on a boat that long. Have you ever been on a boat like that?
Well, no, not like that. I've, just our houseboat at Lake Powell, which is not quite as vast as the ocean, but it just intrigues me to be out on the boat. No, I never have, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's kind of on the bucket list. It's something I've always wanted to do, is to just live on a boat for a little while and see what that's like and experience and get that experience as well.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. You mentioned a couple of things that I would like to ask you to elaborate on here. One thing that you mentioned is that everybody faces challenges in life. And then you also mentioned that it took a little bit to get your head around what had happened to you and where you were going to head after your accident. There are people listening to our show right now that are facing challenges of their own. What kind of words would you have for them?
Hopefully, you're listening to my story. You can, listen to other people's stories about, perseverance and overcoming obstacles in your life. And everybody has them. As I said, everybody faces challenges, whether it's of a physical nature or something else. We all have obstacles to overcome. We all face challenges. And I would just say that, if they can draw any knowledge or inspiration from my story, I guess that would be it, or somebody else's story. Just that, you've got to be persistent. There's ways to overcome challenges. It just depends on what it is. But in my case, I had a close-knit group of friends and my family. It was a big support group early on, and that helped as well, because nobody wants to be on an island. And I think that's kind of the message with Adaptive Adventures as well. We want to engage people to live a healthy, happy life, but sometimes you need a little help. Sometimes you need access to different equipment. Sometimes you need the right venue and the expertise to get that done and to make it happen, to adapt and overcome your situation. And I think that analogy goes hand in hand with other situations in life as well.
I think you're right. I had a thought today I'd like to share here that I hope might be applicable for someone. I think happiness is like what people used to call quicksilver, like mercury. You can't pick it up. You reach for it and try to grab it, and it skitters away. And the reason I say that is when we focus on our own happiness, it's very elusive. That's very hard to do. But when we set that aside and we say, I am going to go do something. I'm going to go be with someone. I'm going to go get involved in this activity. I'm going to go, whatever your dream or your goal or the next thing on the bucket list is, when you start focusing on that, then happiness comes along for the ride. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'll give you another example. In 1996, 20 years ago, a friend of mine showed me a hand cycle. I think I'd seen pictures of one, but I'd never been on it. And I was like, I'd never been on one. And so he actually not only showed me his hand cycle, he loaned me another hand cycle and suggested that I do a ride called Ride the Rockies. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ride the Rockies. Most people in Colorado know what it is. It's a week-long, typically about 400-mile bike ride through the Rocky Mountains. You ride through different mountain towns. Sometimes it starts in Durango and ends in Steamboat. I mean, it's a different route every year. But I didn't take him seriously at first. He loaned me this hand cycle, and I said, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, just try it. Just go out and start riding a little bit more and see what it's like. So I started doing that, and I set my goal to do this ride. It was 6 days. The first one was 420 miles, and the first day was 90 miles. It wasn't just 90 miles flat. It was a 90-mile ride over the Grand Mesa. Which,
holy cow!
If anyone knows where the Grand Mesa is, it's by Grand Junction, and it's literally like the top of the world. You're up there, and it's an unbelievable climb. But I thought, what the heck? I've got nothing to lose. Let's try it. And I guess the point is that I don't think I would have been interested in doing that as an able-bodied person. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I was never a cyclist. In fact, after I'd done it a few people would ask me, hey, were you a cyclist before you got hurt? And I'd say, well, not really. I had a paper route when I was a kid. Does that count? But it was it was amazing. I met some of the coolest people that are still friends of mine today, and I rode the whole 420 miles, and I thought, okay, I can cross that off the list. Been there, done that. I was really proud of myself that I trained enough and met the challenge, and I rode the whole thing. And, of course, 6 months later, I'm getting phone calls, hey, you know, are you going to do the Ride the Rockies again this year? And I thought, yeah, what the heck, I'll do it again. And I ended up doing it like 12 years in a row.
Nice.
I just embraced it. And again, it's something I probably wouldn't have had interest in doing, but it was put to me as a challenge. I did it the first year, and then I just really got into it. And it's just a beautiful way to see Colorado on a bike. So anyway, that was a great experience that I never thought, you know, I kind of went into it kicking and screaming, and I never thought it would be all that. And it was very rewarding. And now I get to get other people, you know, I try to talk other people into doing it and saying, hey, you can do this, you know, just try to ride 10 miles. And then the next day, you know, next week, try to ride 20 miles and then 25 and then build your way up to, see if you can ride 50 miles in a day. And if you can ride 50 miles in a day, then what, the sky's the limit. You can do, and I think that, again, it's just that you can look at a challenge like that, and then when you complete the challenge, it's something to be proud of, and it's something that, really, as I said, it flows over into other facets of your life. You get a little bit more confidence. You don't feel as left out. You don't feel, handicapped. You just feel like another rider. So it was a great experience.
How can people give to help support what you're doing with your organization here?
Well, first of all, you can go to the website, and if you like what you see, you can click on a donate button just right through the website. And you can donate with a credit card, or if you want to send a check in, a donation, it's tax deductible. We are a 501c3, and they can send that to Adaptive Adventures at 1315 Nelson Street, Unit 1, and that's Lakewood, Colorado, 80215.
Say that one more time, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
That's Adaptive Adventures, 1315 Nelson Street, Unit 1, Lakewood, Colorado, 80215.
80215. Right on. Well, I see here on your website, there's the donate button, sponsorship opportunities, events, matching gifts, securities, wish list. So people go to the website and look at it. There are a lot of ways to get involved. So you can donate time, you can donate money, you can get involved as a participant, and I think it's fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for sharing this amazing opportunity with us today, Adaptive Adventures. Thanks for being on the show and letting us know about it.
Well, my pleasure, Kurt. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to create some more awareness about what we're doing in the community.
Well, I love what you're up to, man. Adventure sports and getting people out to have fun, no matter what. And I would like to encourage all of our listeners today, no matter what your challenge is, don't let it get in the way. Get out there and have some fun. All right, so admittedly, I'm biased, but I absolutely love the guests that we have on the Adventure Sports Podcast. Will you help us share the love and get the word out about the show? In the podcasting world, it really is all about the downloads. That's what keeps us going and makes all of this possible. So help us get the word out if you would. We really appreciate it, and thank you in advance for getting the word out about the Adventure Sports Podcast.